There's a version of me that I want to be, a version led by discipline, integrity, and purpose, not by fleeting impulses, selfish desires, or laziness. But I can't become that person unless I let my lower self die. That's the paradox of transformation. Before you can become something greater, you have to kill what's holding you back. And that's terrifying. Most people run from that kind of death because it feels like losing a part of themselves. But what if that's the point? What if who you were needs to die so who you were meant to be can finally live? I have always found that intense verbiage helps me personally understand concepts and to feel the weight of the importance of certain concepts. So, if you haven't figured out already, we're going to be talking about this metaphorical death. And if that's something that you feel uneasy about, you might want to skip this episode. But for the sake of clarity, when I mean dying to yourself, I don't mean in the physical sense at all, nor would I encourage that. I mean that in a metaphorical, spiritual sense. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about dying to yourself. The universal struggle, good and evil. In every great story, there's a battle between good and evil. We see it in myths, religions, movies, even in our day-to-day lives. Two concepts that are innately interwoven into our psyche. We all have that sense of justice, right? Push religion aside for just a moment, okay? Without any of those, we all have this basic understanding of what is equal and what is not. And outside of that, there are many, many, many more variables that define that good and evil from people group to people group. But strip all of those factors away, you will understand that every human being has a concept of what is right, what is owed them, what is wrong, what is not owed them. But the real war isn't out there. It's inside of us. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, talked about the shadow self, the part of us that is selfish, impulsive, lazy, destructive. And here's the thing. We all have that inside of us. Think about it. Have you ever said or done something that felt completely out of character for you? Have you ever caught yourself making excuses for behaviors you knew were wrong? Have you ever wanted something so badly in the moment only to regret it later on? That's the battle. The fight between who you are tempted to be and who you know you should be. There's an ancient parable that is pretty much a meme nowadays. One, because it's hilarious, but it's really useful in kind of illustrating this idea of good and evil within oneself, right? It's called the ancient parable of the two wolves. And I believe it's like a Cherokee parable. You could fact check me on that. Don't take my word for it. But from what I can remember, it goes something like one day, an elder is telling his grandson, inside every person, there are two wolves fighting. One is evil, driven by anger, greed, laziness, selfishness, all those vices. And the other one is good, full of integrity, discipline, love, selflessness, everything that is opposite of the negative. And the grandson asks something along the line of, which one of those wolves wins? And it's really simple. The elder replies, well, the one that you feed. See, nowadays we make that funny joke like, I've got two wolves inside of me and blah, 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 blah. Hilarious. I love it. But the original point of that parable is actually quite significant when it comes to understanding how we become who we are truly meant to be. I believe, and this is just my opinion, it's not fact, but in the 31 years of living in my life, I've always believed that there are three ways people can live, right? You could try to be good. You could actively try and choose what is right, even when it's hard. You could be neutral. You could just coast, avoid responsibility, go wherever life takes you. Or you could be evil. You could be wicked. That is to choose selfishness, deception, and destruction, whether consciously or unconsciously, for those temporary highs, for those fleeting moments of purpose, to fill that ever expanding hole that you feel at the center of your being. Oftentimes, I feel like that evil sense isn't really easy to understand as evil. I think in a lot of ways, we've been conditioned in our culture, especially in capitalistic society, to consume, especially with the self care movement. A lot of that has been absorbed by capitalistic ideologies to where it's like, you should buy this and you need to buy that to be happy, and you need this new car and you need this new phone and you need these types of shoes and you need this jewelry, you need this piece of technology, you need this, and that. If you're ever going to be happy, treat yourself, this, and that. And we end up being conditioned to center ourselves, our happiness, our desires above the collective whole. And here's what I also think most people don't realize when it comes to good, neutral, and evil choices. Neutrality is a myth, okay? If you're not intentionally choosing good, you are passively allowing evil to win. Like, this is easy to understand in the political landscape. If you are silent on major political issues that affect your neighbors, that affect your friends, your family, those in your community, if you choose to ignore those realities, you are passively supporting those evils that are actively seeking to oppress such people. You are passively allowing evil to win. History has proven this over and over. Great injustices don't just happen because of evil people. They happen because good people did nothing. Studies in moral psychology, like those by Jonathan, I don't know how to say his last name, but Jonathan Haidt, suggests that humans have an innate sense of right and wrong, but our environment and choices determine whether we act on it. We are constantly shaped by our habits. If we let small compromises slide, such as lying, justifying laziness, ignoring our conscience, over time, that essentially becomes who we are. So ask yourself, am I actively choosing growth, or am I just floating through life hoping I somehow become a better person? What small compromises am I making that are pulling me further from my ideals? I don't think anybody initially wants to be a bad person. I don't think anybody initially wants to be this idea of evil or wicked or cruel, manipulating, angry, murderous, lustful, so on and so forth. I don't think we start with that passionate desire to. It starts with the little compromises that we're taught, maybe by those who were supposed to raise us, maybe by what we watched on TV, what we read on forums online, what our friends told us. Wherever the source may be, it always begins with small compromises, pulling us further and further from our innate righteous ideals. See, if you do not intentionally build yourself into this righteous person, then the world will turn you into something else. So what does it mean to die to yourself? Why do I choose to use such harsh language? See, for me, dying to yourself means recognizing that your impulses are not your identity. Your anger is supposed to be a tool for good. Your fear is supposed to keep you from making stupid choices. Your desires are supposed to stem from good intentions. Why do you want to be successful? I don't know, maybe you grew up in poverty and you want to take care of your family for once. Why do you want to fall in love? I don't know. It's a great thing to fall in love and to be in a relationship with somebody. Why would you want kids? It's a great thing to be able to raise a life in the proper way and experience, all of those ups and downs of parenting. Why would you want to learn how to fight? Maybe you want to protect others. So on and so forth. It goes on and on and on. These desires are supposed to exist as a shadow of something greater, something good. They're all parts of you, but they don't define you. And if you let them drive the car, they will take you somewhere you never wanted to go. So, how do we actually die to ourselves? How do we stop feeding the wolf that leads us to destruction? I mentioned this in a couple episodes ago. Number one starts with radical self honesty. Stop running from that mirror. Introspection. You cannot kill what you refuse to acknowledge in you. Most people make excuses instead of admitting their weaknesses. So challenge yourself. Write down the 5 biggest things holding you back in your life and be brutally honest. Am I scared that I'm constantly going to be a failure? Am I afraid that I'll never be loved in the way that I desire? Or am I even aware that I'm worthy of love? Number 2, accept that you will mourn your old self. Change requires loss. You can't hold on to who you were and become something new at the same time. It's taken me 3 years to learn that. To fully step into who I am today, I had to really truly mourn everything I thought was supposed to be me in the past. Psychologists call this identity death, not identity theft, identity death. When we change, we grieve the comfort of who we used to be. We're mourning this identity that we held on to for so long. And that's okay. But don't mourn so long that you refuse to move forward like I did. I somehow kept believing that I had to be this person, that I had to live my life in this way, that I had to have love look like this, that I had to reach these certain milestones. No, I didn't. I didn't have to do any of that. I made some poor choices, and as the consequences of my actions and lack of care for my own mental health, I lost everything. So I had to mourn essentially 7 years, 9 years of myself in adulthood that I had worked hard to cultivate, to build, that really gave me a sense of purpose in life. But listen to me when I say this. None of that was wasted. None of that. None of those memories, none of those moments in my life was ever wasted. And none of the moments that you will go through from now in the future will never be wasted because we are always becoming who we are. Number 3, build meaning through action. Don't just think about change. You don't become disciplined by thinking about discipline. You don't become righteous by wanting to be righteous. You got to act. If you want integrity, practice telling the truth even when it's uncomfortable. If you want discipline, train yourself to follow through on your commitments, even the small ones. If you want creativity, don't wait for inspiration. Create every single day. Write your thoughts out. Draw something even if it doesn't make sense. Let your stream of consciousness take over once in a while. Number 4, this is a little, this could cause some hurt in people because maybe they were hurt by an institution or an ideology that they were taught when they were younger. And so they lost their trust in something that was supposed to safeguard them and lead them. Number 4 is reconnect with a higher calling. Honestly, this is the point that has kept me going all of my life. In my darkest of moments, when nothing made sense, when all I could feel was pain, the one thing that kept me going has always been hope. Not hope in myself, not hope in anybody around me, as weird as that sounds, but hope on something bigger than myself. Hope that there is this current flowing, you can say the universe, the spiritual realm, your heart, whatever. But there's this current of good, of peace, of strength, of life, of flourishing that is present in the space all around us. And if we can jump into that current, if we can become in sync with that current, then we can hope that that current will carry us where we need to be. See, if we try to define morality based solely on our feelings, we're going to end up justifying anything. We will end up justifying anything because we feel it is the right thing to do. That's why people seek a higher standard. something bigger than them. Whether it's faith, philosophy, or deeply held ethics, I think you've got to submit to something greater than your own impulses. But don't take my word for it. You don't have to. You could become the arbiter of truth. You could become your own apex of humanity and trust in yourself that you have all of the answers of life, right? You don't need anybody. You don't need a higher standard. You could truly believe that you're your own higher standard. But try and live like that and see how many people will take issue with that. I always find it funny when people think that they're the center of their own universe or the center of the universe, period. Because if we were to maintain that each and every one of us is the arbiter of truth and that we hold within our minds how life should be by our own definition, if we remain as the center of the universe, then that means that everybody around us was created to serve us. That means that every relationship I enter in is supposed to only benefit me. Everywhere I work, everybody works for me. Every customer I interact with, they better get along with me. That is so tiring. That is so draining. That is so frustrating to live your life in that way, to believe that you are the center of the universe. Try that for a while and see how happy you truly are. I don't know, it sounds really tiring to me. I don't want to be a king. I don't want to be a god. I want to be a vessel of love, of transformation, of safety, of peace, of giving. You know somebody who lives that way. They don't care what you think. They don't care what others think. They live by their own truth, and that's enough for them, regardless of the fact that their self-centeredness, their personal belief that they have all the answers, ends up creating a whole slew of problems for everybody around them. But really, ironically, it also creates problems for them. But we won't get too much into that. Let's finish with the last point here. Understand that this is a daily death. And if it's a daily death, or at least a weekly death, monthly death, whatever. The point is, this is a common death. And if it's a common death, then the opposite is true. There's a constant rebirth. There's a daily rebirth, a weekly rebirth, a monthly rebirth. And through these countless rebirths that we experience in life, we get to live almost in a sense as children again, right? Like we get to live with childlike wonder. We get to recapture the magic that once enveloped us when we were younger, as we looked at the world around us and saw it as so big and mysterious and scary, but beautiful and exciting and ever revealing the more and more we learn and put ourselves out there. And that's a whole other episode just to talk about, recapturing the essence of what it means to be a child, what it means to restore that joy, that curiosity, that safety that every child should be raised up in on this planet. And like a child, you will mess up on your journey. You will have moments where your old self fights back. No, this is who I have always been. This is what's comfortable. These habits are what I know, even though it's destroying me inside, even though it makes me feel empty inside. But it's normal. It's normal. So long as you know the goal isn't perfection. Nobody will be perfect. I'll never be perfect. I'm not aiming for perfection. I'm aiming for persistence. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for persistence. Every day is an opportunity to uproot and kill what is ruining the garden of your heart. As I end this episode, please, this is not about self-hatred. I'm not telling you to hate yourself. That won't do you any good. This isn't about self-hatred. This is about self-mastery. You see, the world will tell you to follow your heart. But what if your heart is leading you off a cliff? The world will tell you, just be yourself. But what if yourself needs to evolve? What if being yourself hasn't worked for years and years and years? Maybe you need to evolve. See, true strength is not in giving in to whatever you feel. True strength is in choosing to become the person you were meant to be. So here's my challenge for this week. What needs to die in you today? What mindset, what habit or impulse is holding you back from your higher calling? Because you will either be ruled by your impulses or rule over them. But you cannot have both.